Broadcasting to you live from high atop a national monument in Rapid City, South Dakota, it's the Mount Rushmore Podcast with your hosts, Richard.
Hello.
And Michael.
Howdy.
And me, Jeff. And we are a top 4 ranking podcast. And by that, I don't mean that we are ranked in the top 4 of any podcast. I'm just saying that we rank the top 4 of any given topic. And this week, the topic is chosen by Michael. And it is what, sir?
Revenge.
Oh, my God. Why did you choose this one?
Well, I think that revenge in itself is a pretty universal concept. I think everybody can relate to it. I think everyone has been wronged to some degree. And at least in part, even the smallest sort of, slights, you kind of contemplate, how can I get this person back?
Oh, yeah.
What can I do to get them? And, while thinking about this topic, I stumbled upon a quote from a 17th century poet, George Herbert, who said, "Living well is the best revenge." And I'd like to say, no, revenge, much better. Just straight up revenge, typeset in Times New Roman.
Yeah.
Probably all capital letters, right? Usually revenge, R, period.
Yeah.
Sometimes an exclamation point.
Mm-hmm.
And
flat out revenge.
Great.
Yeah.
It's great.
And I start with venge, then I do it again, and that's revenge.
Yeah.
And
you venge first. If you don't venge first, you can't revenge.
Yeah, that's a Pink Floyd song, I think.
And then at the end of the day, you devenge, and you just gotta.
That's a Devo song.
When outside of the 17th century could a poet say that they lived well? I wonder.
That's the thing. It's like you got some, I assume, some white guy living in like the countryside who has probably always lived well. Mm-hmm. There was never a point when he didn't live well.
Yeah.
To the point where he's like maybe successful as a poet.
Mm-hmm.
What wrongs have you possibly? Who do you need to live well against?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Okay, Michael chose it, so Richard, exact your
I will
revenge.
exact my revenge on Michael for picking this topic.
Like a pound of flesh.
I will have this revenge.
This kind of also continues our like streak of just like, man, we're getting dark.
Yeah, this is yours for a change.
It's
usually
surprising.
I'm the one who's
I know. Usually it's like Mount
death
Rushmore,
and destruction.
pound puppies and unicorns.
Exactly. Which put that on the list.
Typing it up.
All right. So my first choice is Dave Carroll. He is a lead singer of a Canadian folk pop group called Sons of Maxwell. And if you've never heard of them, that's okay. They weren't super successful before this incident happened. They were beginning a tour, and I'm quoting from howstuffworks.com, their tour of Nebraska in 2008, which I call bullshit on right there. Nobody tours Nebraska.
Yeah, it's Lincoln, it's Omaha.
You tour through Nebraska.
Yeah.
You don't
Your
actually
car
tour
accidentally
Nebraska.
breaks down in Nebraska, and you start playing, hoping that someone comes along to give you some
So enough
gas
money to fix your car. Exactly. That's what happens. But they were traveling from Canada to Nebraska to start their, let's call it their U.S. tour. And someone noticed on the plane, hey, those handlers are throwing guitars around. And
Those are stage guitars. They can only be thrown on stage.
Exactly. Dave Carroll looks out of his window and notices, in fact, the handlers are taking his guitars and just tossing them into the into the hold.
Yeah.
And sure enough, when he gets to Nebraska, finds out his $3,500 Taylor guitar had been basically shattered.
Oh, wow.
Has 9 months of back and forth with United trying to get this taken care of. And they eventually say, well, you didn't file the claim within the first 24 hours, so we can't do anything for you.
Oh, jeez.
So he decides to get his revenge by writing a song called United Breaks Guitars, which tells the entire story of how he had his guitar and how the baggage handlers broke it and how United wouldn't pay for it. It's a modern day Bob Dylan song. If Bob Dylan was like a cranky consumer activist, like one of those guys on your local news who, United is breaking cars, breaking stuff. Tune in at 11.
Hotels offer $39.99 rates, but do they really follow through on those rates?
Yeah, so if that was Dylan that was Dylan. And was that Dylan were you doing Dylan?
Yeah, that was Gary Dylan, yeah.
Okay, good. I'm glad we're thinking of the same person. That's basically what this song would be. And it's really funny. And he wound up getting about 4 million views in the first month. And now the story goes that United may have actually impacted their stock value.
Oh, wow.
It's a little, now the numbers are a little fudgy on this, so I'm not sure how much that's actually true or
Yeah.
not. But it definitely created like this huge embarrassment for United. And thank God they got past that and haven't had anything that has embarrassed them
What year was
online
this?
lately. 2008.
That is like just right before. I guess complaining on Twitter is like the only way to get things done these days. Like going through customer services with any large company is apparently really terrible.
Yes.
But just the smallest inclination of like complaining publicly, like their online Twitter reps usually are like right on it because they know that can potentially go viral, and that is the thing that scares them most of all is that outcry.
Yeah, as someone who does marketing for a living and monitors my company's social media sites, anytime someone complains about something, we have to get right on it with this, preset answer and then forward it to the right people and make sure this is taken care of right away. And it doesn't matter if the person is
You've got to go
just
into your
being
folder
an
that
idiot
has
about it.
the right number of like what you talking about, Will, is GIFs.
Yes.
That you can just throw out real quickly and like play it off and be like, okay, what's the next gift? I have like a good a Star Wars prequel GIF. Okay, let's get that out there. And then
There are no good Star Wars prequel gifs. I refuse to accept that.
Does the fact that the Revenge was musical in nature exhilarate you as a lover of music and also kind of underground, underappreciated hipster music as well?
Yeah, I never heard this band before, and I haven't heard of them since.
Yeah.
So I can't really speak to that
Was
too much.
this-
I mean, they're kind of like, it kind of sounds very Mumford and Sonsy if Mumford and Sons had a tangible sense of humor.
Yeah.
they hate Southwest. Mumford and Sons. I've heard their
You
song.
heard
Yeah,
stories? Okay.
it's not good.
One thing, as the reader of the HuffPo, it seems like every day they post so-and-so person does a takedown on Twitter of such and such politician or celebutard. And I 100% guarantee that Donald Trump is never reading any of those takedown tweets.
Sure.
It's published.
You could have stopped at reading.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. But I love the fact that these guys didn't just kind of mumble. Do either of you have other musical revenge?
No, that's
No.
my only
Okay.
musical one.
In the Nile Rodgers autobiography, he talks about the origins of the freak out of Les Freaks,
Okay.
C'est Chic, and as being one night they were invited by Grace Jones to meet them at Studio 54. Grace Jones tells Nile Rodgers and Bernard Edwards, come to the back door, knock at the back door, tell them you're with me, and they'll let you in. They go to the back door. They knock. They say, we're with Grace Jones. They're told promptly to go to hell. And they're angry, so they go to the studio and they write a song that the lyrics are, aw, fuck off. And they record it, and then at last minute they decide, well, we can't use these lyrics. We'll have to use something else. And Le Freak becomes like an international number one.
Sensation, yeah.
And it is also perceived, it is beloved in other countries for different reasons. One, because it's has some French lyrics, and so in Europe it's kind of beloved.
Chic. That's a
C'est
French word.
chic, yeah. And in Africa, they perceived it to be Les Afriques, c'est chic.
Oh, wow.
So a lot of people adopted that song and loved it for different reasons. So I just love, and Nile Rodgers has a lot of stories about competitive jealousy and envy and wanting to get kind of artistic revenge on somebody. Giorgio Moroder had electronic music that had this really pulsing, arpeggiated kind of rhythms to it. And Nile Rodgers didn't know that was a synthesizer. He thought, this guy's really great at playing these 16th notes. So let me go. So he learned how to play on the guitar really well, and then added that technique to his tool belt. But I'm just fascinated when revenge causes somebody to actually grow as a person.
Well, and I think this is interesting because he wound up writing 3 different songs. This is they wound up making a trilogy of United Breaks
Sons of
guitar
Maxwell.
songs.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And you said this doesn't have anything to do with the Star Wars prequels.
Yeah, that's a good.
United goes light on the peanuts.
Yeah, they got more and more like just sort of nitpicky.
United
as
will
they
never
went
give
along.
you the whole can of ginger ale.
And he wound up getting a book out of this called United Breaks Guitars, The Power of One Voice in the Age of Social Media.
That's great.
He now gives speeches about how to get your customer service complaints heard. So this guy has turned this, United being idiots and breaking his guitar into like a total cottage industry.
That's
so
cool.
to that, I say bravo.
Bravo.
God, that is such a foot in the door moment of just like, okay, just kind of like a middling, mediocre band or whatever. I don't know what their music is like at all. So, and then to be like, this is my opportunity to, where can I take this?
How can I go?
How can I milk it so completely dry?
I'm super excited for when I take my trip to Australia in a couple of months for Air Canada to break my computer, so I can write an anti-Air Canada song, and then I can become big in Canada.
Nice.
Winfield, what do you got?
We mentioned his name earlier. It's the
Donald
entire Trump presidency.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
Where
I said that as a joke, by the way, but go on.
yeah, it is one big old revenge plot against Barack Obama, who had made fun of him at the 2011 White House Correspondents' Dinner.
Yeah. So what did he say about him?
Well, leading up to it, Trump is this 70-something-year-old white Fox News piece of shit.
Yeah.
All he does is just watch it and then get riled up, and he's been doing that for years.
Yeah.
And that led to, his years and years and years of conspiracy theory birtherism against Barack Obama. And that kind of came to a head where he was like pushing him to get his like birth certificate released, and eventually he did. And at the 2011 White House Correspondents' Dinner, Trump was there somehow. I don't know why. Let's not invite this guy. I don't know. But it seems like they did to kind of run him down a little bit.
Yeah. If you're going to take a jab at a guy, have him seated right there so you can get the camera on his
And
reaction.
so their writers just kind of wrote all these jokes, basically making fun of him and taking him down about the what was the show? It was The Apprentice and blah 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 blah. And you could, from then on, it was like the seeds of revenge were planted, and his entire administration has been about dismantling things that Obama had built up over the years, and reversing policies and being horribly racist. And maybe he seems like generationally back he was racist.
Yeah.
Just through his, parents.
Yeah.
And it's like, this is a revenge presidency. This isn't one that's built on building new ideas. It's not built on doing things that help people.
Yeah.
It's built on stroking his own ego to say that I beat the person that was supposed to succeed this person and keep his ideas in place.
He's like the rich kid neighbor who's trying to get Pee Wee Herman's bike.
Yeah.
So
and it's just like, it's just so icky, and it doesn't feel like there's anything more to it. Mm-hmm. Like, it doesn't feel like, there's no actual policy other than how can he embarrass someone.
Yeah.
And, I'm glad we don't have to talk about this very long, but it's just so, I think it's unfortunately just so dominant in our daily, I would love whoever's running for president I want their campaign to be, if I'm president, you don't have to wake up checking Twitter to see if we're at war. I will be a boring president. I would vote.
Is that your pledge? That's a good campaign vow right now.
I will vote for whoever is going to be the boringest president, because that is exciting to me, that I don't have to think about.
Yeah, it's not a
revenge-addled nonsense person. Carnival Barker of a guy.
Very real.
Nailed it.
Very real. Very all-encompassing. What do you got, Richard, for your second?
My second one is the movie The Shawshank Redemption.
Why Shawshank?
I love me a good revenge story, especially one that involves a long con.
Yeah.
Literally con in this case. But yeah, I think this is one of those classic tales of someone who's been wronged and finds a way to get revenge on the system, if not necessarily on what kind of his own personal situation.
Uh-huh.
He definitely, the character of
Andy
Dufresne definitely had a long time to ponder his. I think that's what helps, is like, it wasn't a spur of the moment revenge. It was he was in there for a few years surviving, and then he kind of started thinking and had the time to think and plot and plan out his revenge, no matter how long, because he was there for life.
Right.
He could plan his revenge for a long time.
And he did.
Yeah.
To the warden, this by setting up the warden with this way to basically cook the books and with a separate ledger of what money he actually was making versus what he was reporting, and spent, I think in the book it's a longer time. I think in the book it's something like 30 years.
Oh, is it really?
Like that. I don't think it's quite that long in the movie because they didn't want to age people or whatever.
19 years, 30 years, it's all the same.
I guess. Well, hey, if you're the one doing the time in the Huskow,
Yeah.
I guess it doesn't make as much difference. But and winds up with not just planning his escape. I mean, it'd be one thing to be in. It's one thing the fact that he spent 30 years or however long, meticulously picking his way out of prison and building these tunnels and coming up with this plan to escape. But the fact that he also came up with this plan to get his revenge on this awful, horrible warden, and use that revenge to be able to fund himself to go off. Spoiler alert: go off to Mexico and have Red join him, and they could live their platonic relationship happily ever after.
Do you feel like I remember one thing that I felt unsatisfied by at the end was
they
that
didn't have sex.
Yes.
Okay.
What happens to the warden? Does he kill himself?
Yeah, he kills himself because the cops are coming to take him away because Andy had mailed them the actual ledgers that showed all of the cooking of the books.
He also had sent it to the newspapers first.
Right.
He sent a copy of everything that was happening to the newspapers. So they took down the head prison guard. I can't remember what his name was. Hadley. They took him down, and then as they were coming to
get Norton, he
put a bullet in his head.
Yeah. I wanted to see the warden in prison. I remember being peeved that he took the coward's way out.
There was no final scene of him in Shawshank.
Yeah, where he would get
I think
away.
I think it was probably truer to the character of him being kind of a sniveling kind of worm.
Yeah.
That he wouldn't have the guts to actually face up his punishment.
That's a movie that really would have benefited too. What that came out in 97, 98?
It was earlier than that, I
96, 95?
95, 94,
That
something like that.
would have benefited from a over the credits rap song.
Oh, sure.
They just summed up. They kind of rehashed everything that we just saw and summed it up. Because I'm sure you could rank Shawshank with a lot of things.
Yeah, tank,
Shawshank.
bank, stank.
Oh my god.
Hank.
We'll write this one next.
All right. So do you think Tim Robbins could have
We'll
done
see
it?
if we can get Dave Carroll to
write this
Yeah.
one?
to write the Shawshank rap that can go over the credits.
Except it's all about United Airlines.
Dave, get over it.
Jeez, God.
I love it. Winfield, what was your second?
Lorena Bobbitt.
That's a pretty good revenge.
Oh, wow.
That's some revenge served hot. That's
19
piping hot.
1993. This is as hot a revenge as you can get. Although, the things that came after were just kind of gross and icky. I mean, so Lorena Bobbitt was married to someone named John Wayne Bobbitt, and he was apparently very emotionally and physically abusive towards her. And one night, she claims that he raped her or thereabouts. The details of it are often kind of murky on whether it was consensual or not. And afterwards, she went to the kitchen and got a knife and cut off his penis. And then
that's not the end of the story.
And then she went driving and threw it into the side of the road, into the woods. And that is just amazing.
And no one on talk shows ever talked about it. Or on morning radio shows.
There weren't a lot of jokes.
Nobody made any jokes
That
about
is what the unfortunate development that came after it. She got this immediate sense of revenge, and then the resulting media that came out of it was jokes, was Tonight Show, Barb's, and a lot of Jay Leno, Lorena Bobbitt jokes. And her husband, she was ultimately not convicted of
cutting off his
the attack. They said it was she was ruled out by means of a form of like insanity, that she had suffered so much abuse that she really wasn't thinking what she was doing. And he ultimately was not convicted of spousal abuse because she had sued him or something, because there just wasn't enough evidence for him as well. But what happened was this guy went on to like star in porno films. They were called
oh God,
John Wayne Bobbitt, Uncut.
Was one called Frankenpenis or something?
The other one was called Frankenpenis.
I'm so embarrassed that I knew that. Sorry, you guys.
But like that, I mean, ultimately,
Those were the three wise men brought those gifts.
That's right. That's right. See, these are the exact type of jokes that like Jay Leno would be making after this like poor woman's abuse, and ultimately he had it surgically reattached, and it went back to being a functioning member again, and like he went on to have like this career that kind of just tried to take advantage of the stuff of like. We were just talking about this guy, Dave Carroll, who went on to have his revenge and exploit the awful thing that happened to him, but it ultimately shed a light on how to deal with companies and how a person can kind of get screwed over by big corporations. This guy just went on to like have a band called the let me look it up real quick. The Severed Parts to help pay his medical and legal bills.
Fuck this guy.
Like. And just continuously, like he
was on Celebrity Boxing, wasn't he?
He was also on like WWF, and he teamed up or was in a segment with like Val Venus, who was the kayfabe porn star wrestler. Mm-hmm. And like this guy was just like a piece of trash, and it's a shame that he benefited in some way after all of this. And like Lorena Bobbitt went on to just kind of start opening a charity that kind of benefited abused women, and she kind of made something positive out of it. But her immediate revenge ultimately resulted in something that seemed like far worse for her than for him. I think he's probably just a huge piece of shit. Yeah, as a human, it seems reading some of the stories.
Do you think that is reflective of our society when it comes to males who are attacked? Can, within the world that we've created, develop a source of empathy from every other male, whether they're a piece of shit or not?
I think that there is as soon as someone amongst these guys become vulnerable, I think there is a wide circle that surrounds them and supports them, because they don't ever want to be vulnerable themselves. I don't know. That's a good question. I got to think about that for a second.
Yeah. Okay, well, why don't you think about it during our halftime? We are at our halftime, and at this point, we want to invite you to go on to our social platforms and share with us the suggestions you have for future episodes of the Mount Rushmore Podcast. You can find us on Facebook, on Instagram, on Twitter. Just search Mount Rushmore Podcast and you'll find us. We have taken suggestions from listeners that have turned into episodes, and sometimes the listeners either guest or make cameos on those episodes. So if that's something you're interested in, please give us your suggestions.
This is your chance to be on a podcast, because there's no other way you can get a podcast going on your own.
Yeah.
It's so difficult.
How else are you going to break into the podverse other than through us? You can get revenge on all those people who made fun of you.
On their podcast.
Podcast. That's right. Just come on our podcast. Just make fun of those fools.
Do all podcasts exist in the same sort of universe, the way that like the Marvel characters exist in
the
there?
MCU, or like the View Askew universe,
or like
that thing.
That dark universe that kind of went nowhere with Tom Cruise and.
Yeah, which is ours in? Is ours in the same as like Gilbert Gottfried's podcast or something like that? I wonder. Well, you could let us know.
Another thing to ponder.
Yeah, let us know what universe, what podverse our podcast is in by leaving comments on every episode of our podcast. And you can download every episode by going to iTunes, going to Stitcher, by going to iHeartRadio. And you can also leave a review after you let us know what universe it belongs in. And you can support podcasting in general by supporting this podcast.
Have you ever been reading through a stack of comics and thought, maybe I should see what this Arkham Asylum game is all about? Or been playing Marvel vs. Capcom and felt like you were at a real disadvantage since you didn't know who half the characters were? Well, Play Comics is the show for you. I'm Chris, and each episode we take a look at video games based on comic properties and how well they stick to that source material. So whether you know the comics and want to know how all these games work, or you know the games and want to find out where all this craziness came from, go check out Play Comics at playcomics.com or wherever you find your favorite podcasts.
Oh, I love that podcast. Those people are amazing.
They're fun.
They're fun. They're fun. So normally on these episodes, often on these episodes, I rack my brain to try to psychoanalyze the mindset of Richard or Michael, and this is so easy this time because all they're lusting after and drooling over is revenge. So I don't even need to
That's
really.
the topic.
That's the topic.
That's actually the topic.
Oh God.
The subtext has become text.
Oh, okay.
Jeff.
Okay, I thought this was spring fling. I thought that was a spring fling. Was that ever a topic?
Pay attention.
Oh, sorry guys. Okay.
Spring fling is
That's a pretty good topic though. Type that one down.
Yeah.
You know, Mount Rushmore spring break.
Ain't bad.
That's pretty awesome.
Ain't bad.
Mount Rushmore of just like spring break.
Okay, so we recorded this one in Daytona Beach.
My spring break was just it's son of a lawnmower, me mowing lawns.
We have to go to Daytona Beach and build a little Mount Rushmore sandcastle.
Oh, that'd be
right.
That's
radical.
us with our sand pails.
Hey boys, what are you doing?
Jeff's putting zinc on our nose. And
Yeah. I'll be like the Coppertone baby.
Oh, we're just a little booty hanging out as a terrier's trying to chew off your swimsuit. Did I talk about the wrong thing there?
No. You're totally
Paying
on
attention.
brand.
Yeah, that image came too easy for me. Okay, this is the Mount Rushmore of Revenge, and Richard is going to let us know his third.
Okay, my third is my second movie on this list, and it is The Cook, the Thief, His Wife, and Her Lover.
Oh, wow. Never seen this one.
Oh, it's fantastic. Directed by Peter Greenaway, starring Helen Mirren and Michael Gambon. Michael Gambon, best known being a really not very good Dumbledore,
yeah.
allegedly.
You know what? I prefer the Michael Gambon Dumbledore to the other one.
That's a hot take.
To the Harris.
Richard Harris
To the
one?
Richard Harris one. I wish... God, we jumped to Harry Potter so quickly. My issue with his is that he wasn't zany enough.
Sure.
I think Dumbledore should be crazy. I think he should appear crazy to all of the students.
I think that he should have been Ian McKellen, dressed up like Gandalf and acting like Gandalf, because that's how I picture him in the book, is basically Sir Ian McKellen.
Yeah, he needs to say more sillier things.
Like,
Richard Harris was too stuffy.
like he needs some sort of, does he need like a wacky punch, like catchphrase or something?
Yeah.
Here comes the cheese.
Okay, I've got a better Dumbledore.
Yeah.
Helen Mirren as Dumbledore, just in makeup.
I would accept
just
that.
put a beard on her. She's fine. She can do it.
I would accept that
Done.
in a heartbeat.
Done.
So
Recasted for whenever it comes out on Netflix.
when
It's
they
like
do
a-
the 10-part
seven,
seven
70
series.
something, 70
The
episodes.
Like the It version of that, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So this movie, I'm not going to rehash the entire plot because you should see it yourself, but there will be spoilers in this, so we can get to the revenge part. Michael Gambon plays Albert, who is a violent.
Is he the cook or is he the thief?
He's the thief.
Okay.
He's this violent kind of gangster, crime lord who has bought and has basically taken over this high-class French restaurant. And he comes in every night with his goons, including Tim Roth, and basically just wreck the place and act like complete buffoons. And
Tim Roth plays a good goon.
He does.
He was really good in Rob Roy as just like the super awful.
Oh, he's great in Rob Roy.
Yeah.
The fact that he didn't win like Best Supporting Actor was like real kind of rip off that year.
He was robbed.
He was Rob
Oh,
Roy.
Robbed royally.
He was Rob Royd. And Helen Mirren plays his wife, who has tried to get away several times and hasn't been able to do it. And starts an affair with a bookshop owner, Michael. By the way, it's Michael, who winds up getting murdered by Albert and his goons, by stuffing pages from his books in his mouth till he chokes to death.
Sweet irony.
So there's
That's
active
some revenge.
There's Active Revenge Part 1. Active Revenge Part 2 is when Georgina, Helen Mirren's character, finds out about this. She basically begs and pleads with the cook at the restaurant until he agrees to cook Michael's body. They get the gangster Michael Albert Spica in the restaurant, surrounded by all these people who he had wronged over the years, and she makes him at gunpoint eat a part of Michael's body.
Wow.
That's a revenge actually served hot. Literally served hot. And then she shoots him in the head and calls him a cannibal.
The part the next day where they have to make cold Michael sandwiches. That's the cold part.
Yeah,
They sit there and they just a little jelly on the side too, and they're just like, oh, well, we got all this Michael.
Can't waste it.
Can't waste it.
waste
Use
it.
one of the
Take
bone
some.
for soup, and
Look,
then
I
gotta
got
make sure
a paper plate with saran wrap. Here, take it with you.
I am so full of Michael at
No,
this
take
point.
it. Could you just?
Jeff,
we're just gonna throw it out.
I wish I could.
Oh.
Okay. Make a little
Plate.
packet.
All right, I'm gonna give it to you in Tupperware, but I want the Tupperware back.
Yes, please. It's a weird movie, as you can tell. It's also a very beautiful movie. Peter Greenaway, the director, a lot of his sort of way the shots are staged are influenced by like Flemish artwork and that era of art. So it's a very beautiful movie to look at, and that's pretty much the ultimate revenge: making someone eat another person. That's about as
Now,
that's pretty hardcore.
he seems like a bastard though, and might kind of enjoy eating.
He did not.
He did not. Okay.
He threw up after he
Okay.
ate it.
Okay.
I believe she may have forced him to eat his penis.
Oh wow.
I
Okay.
haven't seen it in a few years, but I believe one of our listeners who's seen this more recently than me, and I hope there is one. Please check me on this.
Okay. Michael, your third.
My third is also a movie, and it is A Fish Called Wanda.
Oh, good.
And this was honestly the word revenge when the Michael Palin character of Ken is running over Otto, who's stuck in cement, and a steamroller, and he's just saying, "Revenge!" It is just a pure moment of just revenge and joy. So in the movie itself, Ken and Otto, Otto's played by Kevin Kline, and Ken is played by Michael Palin, are part of like this kind of criminal group, and they steal some jewels, and the jewels are hidden in a safe deposit box, and the key is given to Ken, and he ultimately hides it in a fish tank filled with a bunch of fish. Now, Ken, apart from being a criminal, is an animal lover. He's vegetarian. He doesn't want to eat animals. He doesn't want to harm them. And at some point, Otto discovers that Ken might know where this key is. He kind of turns his back on, like he has this whole other plan to steal the jewels from the people that just stole the jewels that he was a part of. And so he discovers that Ken knows where the key is, and he ties him up, and this incredible scene of Kevin Kline eating these small tropical fish in front of Michael Palin's character, who's just like losing his mind. He's so angry and appalled, and he has some French fries, chips stuffed up his nose, and he can't like.
What are you gonna do, Ken?
The other thing about Ken too is that he has a stutter, and it's so painful to watch. He is such a sympathetic character, and to see Kevin Kline be utterly, accidentally, but to see him be so utterly cruel to this person who's a criminal, but ultimately, he's seemingly a nice guy.
Yeah.
And at the end of the movie, and in a ridiculous way, they're at the airport, and of course, concrete's being laid. Who knows? And Otto steps in it, and then Ken, out of nowhere, has a steamroller.
Yeah.
And it's just driving it over. He's just going to get his revenge. And he literally just runs him over, and that cures him of his stutter.
Yeah.
It's so nonsensical, and it's very Monty Python-esque in just that the character studies themselves, but like it's so it is the purest, most happiest revenge I've ever seen.
Yeah.
Ultimately, I guess Otto survives being run over, kind of.
Because it's soft cement.
That's
so
right.
It's okay.
But I just love when I thought of this category, I thought of what is the happiest revenge I've ever seen, and it's this. It's one that brings joy to the person And you don't see that a lot. These are most revenge stories are kind of like these years of study and years of building something up and enacting a plan. This is just like, oh, I'm just gonna run you over with a steamroller.
Yeah. Love it. Richard, your fourth.
All right, so my fourth one is Pierre Picaud. And I will tell you his life story, although if you've read the book...
Oh, I've heard the songs about this man.
I will tell you about...
The children sing his life.
They tell of him. I will tell you his story, although if you have ever read the book The Count of Monte Cristo, you've essentially heard his life story, because...
They made a book of that.
Yeah, they did. Alexander Dumas, it turns out, maybe did not invent The Count of Monte Cristo out of whole cloth. This was an actual life story that he sort of, in some ways, pretty blatantly just kind of took the main points out of and turned it into a novel. So he was basically a
plagiarist,
a
hack,
one of those like nonfiction, like those true crime authors that your mom reads.
Yeah,
everyone's mom reads. So Pierre was a... Get my notes.
How do you say his
Picaud, Picaud.
Okay.
So he was a shoemaker who was engaged to a wealthy woman and got his three friends very jealous about this. So they conspired to accuse him of being a spy for England. And he wound up spending 7 years in prison because of this. While he was in prison, he befriended an elderly Italian priest who, right before he died, told Pierre, "Oh, I have this like treasure that's hidden in Milan, and if you ever get out, you're welcome to get it." So he gets out in
as you do,
as one does. So he gets out in 1814 when the French government falls, and so like the prisons just get sort of, hey, everyone, free to go, but there's no more government. I guess you're free to go. And he goes to Milan and collects this treasure. Now is a very rich person, and comes back to France and starts exacting his revenge on his people who put him in jail. Very much like The Count of Monte Cristo. It's pretty much the exact same plot up to this point. He murdered one of them. He tracked down a second one and poisoned him to death. The third one, who had, I think, married his fiancée, he tricked his daughter into marrying a criminal and then made sure the guy got arrested. And so the daughter wound up dying of a nervous breakdown. He burned down the restaurant that the guy owned, and also set up his son to either convince him to rob something or set him up in a robbery. It's a little unclear. But either way, the kid got arrested for robbery and put in prison.
Wow.
And then he murdered the guy.
Wow.
So then it turns out that he wound up getting murdered by this fourth person who was an accomplice who didn't actually do anything but knew about the plot but didn't tell him about it. And so this guy winds up murdering Picaud. So it's not necessarily a happy ending for him.
Yeah.
That's the one thing that that Dumas sort of changed, is he has his protagonist riding off, literally sailing off into the sunset after this is done. And in real life, he got murdered. So sometimes revenge doesn't work out so well.
Wow.
A lot of these revenge stories, in real life revenge stories, don't have like a great ending. Because I think revenge is something we all desire, but ultimately is a dark thing. And ultimately, it seems like the universe ultimately comes back to get you in some way or another. It's hard to survive revenge because the things that you enact ultimately end up redoubling back, or someone wants the revenge on your revenge.
Yeah.
It's double revenge. It's just, there's things that when you set a revenge plot in place, it has repercussions. And the unnamed fourth person in this story is like a nobody that ends up like, well, he turned him in, and he figured out how to benefit from it. He didn't really have anything to do with it other than he happened to be there.
Do you think it's rare that the first blow is truly... The revenge stories are often told by the innocent person, just like Morgan Freeman talking about the prison where everybody in there is innocent. But that's that person's judgment. they have the introspection illusion where they cannot know, or they hide the fault that they have, the stone that they cast first. Do you think in some of these cases that these individuals were maybe not in the fish called Wanda, but that...
I mean, him too. He was a criminal.
Yeah, he was still a criminal.
He was still a criminal. He still stole things.
Yeah. Yeah, that's one thing I'm interested in. Like, could Pierre Picaud have actually wronged these guys in some way?
Yeah, right. Was there some sort of story that we don't know about?
Yeah. You know what I think
Shouldn't have bragged about his wife so much.
Exactly. She's not that rich, guys. She's actually kind of
poor. What do you got for the final one, Mike?
My last one also kind of draws from The Count of Monte Cristo a little bit.
Oh, really?
It's a 1950s book called The Star's My Destination by Alfred Bester. And it's science fiction, and in it, it's a story of this guy, Gully Foyle, who is kind of like a journeyman on like a space cruiser, or like on a working spaceship that apparently is attacked and kind of left to drift in space. And the ship itself is part of like this big company called Presidency, and he manages to survive. He's not a particularly smart or like motivated person. He's kind of dumb.
Why are you looking at me?
He's not Richard. He's not a smart,
educated
or dumb.
Why is Richard looking at me?
But
why is my finger in my nose?
He managed to survive adrift in space for 6 months, and then a ship comes along, and it's like, oh, this person. He starts sending out the distress calls, sends up the flares, and all the lights go off. Ship sails right past.
Oh.
And he recognizes it as a ship that belongs to the same company. So at that point, he starts to swear his revenge. And the story is about this one man's burning desire to destroy the Presidency company and the people that own it. It's a future. There's so many things that are going on in this book. He ends up getting captured, having his face tattooed, having the tattoos removed, but the anger that he feels reveals itself in like these hot burning tiger stripes on his face. It's a future in which jaunting, like personal teleportation, is a thing. So you can, teleport 100 miles away, 1,000 miles away, depending on how talented you are in this. So this culture has turned ultimately very Victorian in terms of the people that are in power. Mm-hmm. They travel by cars and have mazes. They travel by trains rather than jaunting because they're too rich.
Okay.
Anybody can teleport. But the story is this person who finds his way into getting money, who changes his entire lifestyle, who transforms himself into a person that is of like a nouveau rich, like he's this new money guy.
It's like a Gatsby.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
As part of his huge plan to get his revenge against this one family. Mm-hmm. And it's just this amazing, sprawling epic that a lot in terms of like Count of Monte Cristo, who's captured and eventually goes off to come back, has all this money to get his revenge. But it's just, he wrote a number of books, and they're all just incredible. I can't remember the name of the other one.
Was it Garfield Pigs Out?
Garfield Goes Hawaiian
Yes.
was the other one that he wrote. The Demolished Man, another book of his. And actually...
Mad Goes to the Movies.
Yes. But Pick It, I mean, it is fascinating. Like, as a revenge plot, it involves a lot more, but it's just so deep. And this person is a vile person throughout the book. Mm-hmm. He is not like a good guy.
Guilfoyle.
Yeah, he is not a good guy that gets his revenge. He is a bad person. He rapes people along the way and transforms himself into, but he's ultimately still built solely on revenge. Mm-hmm. And I don't know. I was thought of the Count of Monte Cristo, but then this one came into mind. I was like, oh, this is a newer, spacier science fiction.
It's amazing that these characters don't like get really rich and then just stop.
Yeah.
There's my revenge.
Yeah.
I got a lot of money.
Yeah.
Well, that goes back to the living well guy.
Right.
You can live well. It's not as satisfying. You can be out there eating your cheese and your wine.
Right.
But deep in your soul, if you're built on revenge, You got to do more. You got to take somebody down.
Exactly.
You know what I think is great about these choices is they reveal a lot about you guys individually. I feel like, and this has happened before, and I think it's in broad strokes, where Richard, you talk about revenge versus an institution, and Michael is talking about most of his choices about revenge of a person over another person, and I thought that was kind of interesting. And also, all 8 of these choices were narrated by Morgan Freeman. Isn't that weird?
No, that's about right. No, that's about right.
Yeah.
It's not weird. That's about right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Donald Trump.
Right. Can we get him to narrate this podcast? It would improve things.
Oh, God, the ratings would go up. Okay, so I'm just going to grab some ones that I found were interesting. The Sons of Maxwell, very, very compelling story. And then Michael's going to get the next 2, Lorena, Bobbitt, and Fish Called Wanda. And then Richard's going to get the 4th, the Pierre, Picaud, Count of Monte Cristo.
So that's a 5 and 5, Michael?
Yeah.
It's our official scorekeeper?
Yeah.
Tie.
All right.
It's tie. It's like kissing your sister. Okay.
I will get my revenge on my sister.
Ooh,
Little unclear.
This has got so creepy. Thanks so much for listening to the Mount Rushmore podcast. Our next episode, the Mount Rushmore of shitty things about the Beatles. Sure to be controversial.
Sure to be upbeat.
Upbeat.
As usual.
Up-B-E-A-T.
Up-B-E-A-T.
Exactly.
So tune in for that one. All right, this has been the Mount Rushmore podcast. I, as always, am Jeff.
I'm Richard.
I'm Michael.
What'd you say? I'm going to get you for that. I'm going to get you for that. I can't even act off.